This is about letting our kids have a quality of life that they deserve.
Making a choice, saying no to schools and yes to fans at Arrowhead, and by the way, tailgating too. 2 high-profile visits to our area. Did we learn anything new? Amid all the controversy, we poke around at our local post office. And you've heard the line, if you build it, they will come. Is it time to change that line when it comes to the new look KCI?
Week in Review is made possible through the generous support of Dave and Jamie Cummings, Bob and Marlise Gorley, Haas and Wilkerson Insurance, the Courtney S. Turner Charitable Trust, John H. Mize and Bank of America N.A. co-trustees, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Nick Haynes. What a week in Kansas City, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to dissect it with you, checking in with us as we pour through the most confounding and impactful stories of our week. From 41 Action News, investigative reporter Kat Reed. From the Call newspaper, managing editor Eric Wesson. From KMBC 9 News, chief political reporter Michael Mahoney. And from the pages of your Kansas City Star, Dave Helling. Where were the biggest protests in Kansas City this week? How about outside of school district headquarters all across our metro as parents and students begged officials to let their kids head back to class? While most districts had already decided to push back the start of school until after Labor Day, a slew of districts now, from Lee Summit to Shawnee Mission, announcing they're halting in-person classes altogether, at least for now, but not all. What are we to make this week of the Blue Valley School District, which decided to ignore the advice of county health officials and draw up their own rules for deciding when kids come back?
So we're asking you to give us the choice and let us evaluate the risks and do what's best for our families. I have seen firsthand what this has done to teenagers in our community. It is not good.
And not only am I a high school teacher, but I'm a mom of a high school senior who desperately wants his wrestling season because other states are going to be wrestling, and his college depends on his ability to get a scholarship.
Just 2 of the voices of what were back-to-back parents for 2 hours demanding schools listen to them. Is there now a loss of public trust in what health officials are saying, Kat Reed?
You know, I won't deny that there is an aspect of that for some people, but I think the bigger force that we're seeing here is one, the child care issue, people who have full-time jobs who may be working remotely and they want their kids to go to school so that they can work. And then also you see the concerns about sports. There are a lot of kids who are depending on these seasons for scholarships to go to college. And so I think that is the overwhelming force driving this.
And Dave, you know, at that Blue Valley School District meeting this week, one of the observations that really captured my attention was someone saying, well, you want to sacrifice the future of our children's education, and there have been just 3 deaths of people under the age of 50 from the coronavirus. Is that a sacrifice worth making?
Well, it isn't just about deaths, of course, Nick. It's about other kids catching it, passing it to their parents or relatives or grandmother or grandfather. I mean, this is an epidemic, a pandemic, in which these illnesses are passed around. So that's a concern. But Kat said something very important we need to pay attention to. In the suburban districts, athletics is really driving a lot of this. Team members, parents of team members are sort of saying, hey, we need to get our kids back on the football field or on the soccer pitch or whatever. And that's an interesting dynamic here and across the country. That's playing into a lot of this discussion that you're seeing in these districts who are really, let's face it, caught in a very difficult squeeze, Nick, because they're listening on the one hand to the health experts who are saying you're in the red zone, and then they're listening to parents who say, look, my kids are really depending on this.
And many of those parents, by the way, saying if you don't allow those fall sports, we'll just enroll our students into the club sports. Plus, we'll even move schools and go somewhere else where we are allowed to have in-person learning, Michael.
Of all the arguments, and Dave and Kat, you're right on the sports thing, but of all the arguments, I believe the sports argument is the weakest one. There's no question that in school and classroom education is far superior to distance learning. I think we've demonstrated, that's been demonstrated now in the spring.
Classroom is stronger, but for a lot of parents and sports is very big. That's where you get most of your fights at, from parents hyped up about high school sports. The sports are big.
And we certainly learned the importance of sports this week right here in Kansas City. At the same time, Mayor Quinton Lucas extends a mask mandate through to the middle of January. The mayor and the public health department greenlight plans for the Kansas City Chiefs to return with fans in the stadium. And not just that, greenlighted tailgating at home games. Health Director Rex Archer is not convinced it'll work. It remains to be seen, he says, but I think it's worth a try. Why is it that, Kat, worth a try to allow thousands of people into a sports stadium, many of whom may be older and have pre-existing conditions, and not worth a try to allow students return to the classroom?
Well, listen, Nick, I think for a lot of people, the Chiefs have been the only good thing about 2020. And so people are reluctant to let go of that. I'll say I do see that this potentially changing as the season goes on. I think that there's a very big possibility they're going to have to pull back. Enforcement is a really big concern here. You know, for tailgating, they say you can only tailgate with people who are in your ticket pod, who will be sitting near you in the stadium. How will that be enforced, I think, is a big question. So kind of remains to be seen if this will continue through the season.
Michael, I see that in New York Giants, New York Jets games, there'll be no fans to watch the Chicago Bears, no fans at the Atlanta Falcons, no fans at the Tennessee Titans, at least when they open next month. What is the difference in Kansas City?
Well, nobody wants to go see the Bears, first off. But
Hey!
beyond that, beyond this is the Chiefs getting preferential treatment at City Hall and county government.
Now, Mayor Quinton Lucas, Eric, says he may not go out to the Chiefs Stadium, even though he's a big fan. But he says, I actually think you're probably going to be safer going to a Chiefs game than you might be going out to dinner indoors. Really?
You know, they can spin it any way they want to, but it's just too many mixed messages. On one side, you want to have social distancing. On the other side, you want to go out and enjoy yourself and continue life. I think they need to have one consistent message, stick to that message. That's why people don't have a lot of faith in what's going on, because there's too many mixed messages. One of the people told me that the difference with the stadium and the tailgating, and this is an official, said that they're outside versus in the classroom. You have school boards that are meeting via Zoom versus bringing your kids to the classroom. I think we got too many mixed messages.
Dave.
I had a chance to talk with Mark Donovan, who's the president of the Chiefs, at some length this week about this decision. And it's very clear to me anyway that the Chiefs are interested in having fans because they won the Super Bowl. And they want people in the stands as the flag goes up and all the ceremonies on the first game of the year to celebrate that victory, and you can kind of understand that. But, and I think Eric touched on this, the decision makes it so much harder for Kansas City and, in fact, other health departments to enforce any kinds of restrictions on people, because they'll see the pictures of fans going to Chiefs games and not perhaps distancing as they should or doing other things. So it's just going to be a very difficult challenge for the football team going forward.
Well, Kat mentioned who is going to be policing the mask policy at Arrowhead and what happens to you if you're seen without one. A Kansas City U-Haul store found out what those consequences can be this week. They were stripped of their operating permit by the city after several complaints that customers and staff did not have their faces covered. Some of our viewers contacted us this week to ask, have other businesses been treated the same way after a complaint was made? What about those bars and restaurants Mayor Lucas claimed were not following the rules when he went out one night over the weekend? Were they shut down, Eric Wesson?
Not to my knowledge. The only one that I heard of was the U-Haul, and I understand that they had a ton of complaints called in against them, and I think that was one of the reasons why they had no other choice but to shut them down.
Can I just throw in quickly, Nick? I think with the Chiefs and with the schools, which we just talked about, that we're in the middle of an extraordinarily fluid situation. And the rules will change almost weekly as cases pop up, as they go away. I don't think the Chiefs' decision to allow fans is the end of that story, nor the decisions to open or close school.
Or the decision to have our area colleges start the fall semester on Monday.
Correct.
Over the weekend, Kansas got a visit from the coordinator of the White House Coronavirus Task Force. This week, Dr. Deborah Birx met with Governor Mike Parson.
It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. You need to wear a mask and socially distance. You need to not have parties in your backyard and in your living room, and we need to stop the spread of this virus.
Dr. Birx telling the Missouri governor that any county with more than 20 active COVID-19 cases should be under mask orders. Kat Reed, is Governor Parson now shaking up any of his plans for dealing with the virus as a result of this visit?
Not really. He said he would reflect a bit on what she had to say, but it's interesting to kind of look at the dichotomy during the press conference. Dr. Birx kept her mask on as she spoke, I think largely symbolically. She was far enough away from people where she may not have needed the mask, but it's such an important message. She wore hers, whereas Governor Parson did not wear his when he came to the podium. So I don't know that we're going to see any big change because of her visit.
And he's not going to be telling Michael Mahoney, the area colleges, Mizzou, for instance, with 93% occupancy rate in all of their dorms, that they shouldn't open on Monday?
No, absolutely not. The Parson approach to this has been personal responsibility, try to do it yourself. It would have been fascinating to be a fly on that wall inside of the meeting with Birx and Parson to see if they had, as they like to say in diplomacy, a frank and candid conversation. I don't think they probably did. It was probably unstated.
You know, I mentioned our region got 2 high-profile visitors this week. Also flying into town was the United States Attorney General William Barr. He was here to make an announcement on Operation Legend, the Justice Department program named after the 4-year-old Kansas City boy who was shot in the head while he slept. The program, which launched last month, has brought more than 200 federal agents to Kansas City.
Its mission is to save lives, solve crimes, and take violent offenders off the streets.
This is absolutely making a difference.
At the downtown news conference, the Attorney General said in just 4 weeks, the operation has led to the arrest of 8 homicide suspects and the seizure of more than 70 illegal firearms. Now, when federal agents first came to town, Eric, there was anger over the move. Have these results diminished that hostility?
No, it hasn't. It's just kind of flown under the radar now because all these other things have come up. But people are still upset and alarmed about it in the urban core as they were before.
Kat.
Yeah, and I think the key question that a lot of people have now is how many of these arrests, these seizures were because federal agents were here versus the work of KCPD, in the homicide investigations. In KC, I saw it was an arrest of 18 homicide suspects and the seizure of more than 70 firearms. And Jean Peters Baker said, I have not seen a crime solved yet because of the federal agents. So I think that it's a question that hasn't been answered. We'll just have to wait and see.
That wasn't the only crime-related development this week, Dave Helling. Mayor Quinton Lucas, who has been adamant about local control of police, putting it on the ballot in November, reversed course. It's not going to be on the ballot now. What changed?
Well, I did have a chance, Nick, to talk with the mayor about this very subject yesterday, and he sort of hemmed and hawed a little bit. He said maybe there wasn't the support for this vote in November that he once expected. Some groups had been against it. The Urban League, for example, had said they thought that the vote was unwise. There was some concern that it might lose or be very close and hurt the cause of local control. So they're backing up. There is discussion underway of a statewide petition effort that could be launched as early as the end of the year to try and put this matter before the state's voters, which would change state law. But boy, is that expensive and complicated. So there's no question that the local control push has stalled at some level down at 12th and Oak.
Last month, Michael Mahoney, Governor Mike Parson, brought lawmakers back to Jefferson City to have a special crime session on violent crime in Jefferson City. And we can sometimes lose track of news developments, but it's actually still going on. What is taking so long? Why hasn't anything actually passed at this point?
What's happened here is the governor had one big bill that had residency for St. Louis in it, witness protection programs, lowering the age. Some kids could be tried as adults, some real tough measures. And then he said, also, oh, by the way, let's let the AG, the Attorney General, prosecute St. Louis murder cases. That's a big bag, and there was a legal question about whether or not you could do all these things in one bill. And so the House has gone back and they're taking this out and running them piece by piece on this. But the other thing is Republicans will tell you the the communication between the second and third floor where the governor is, third floor where the legislature sits, has not been good on this. And so it'll be a couple of more weeks on this. He'll get it, Bill.
This week, the Democratic National Convention got underway.
Welcome
to the second night of the Democratic National Convention.
For all of the up-and-comers we're told about in the Democratic Party in Kansas and Missouri, why did no one from here get any primetime speaking slots? Was there no room for a vibrant city mayor called Quinton Lucas, or one of the first Native American women in Congress, Cerise Davids, or a Laura Kelly? Eric, everybody else seemed to be in it.
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised. I noticed when they did the roll call, they went to St. Louis. I was wondering whether or not anybody was on good terms with the people that helped put the convention together.
Kat.
And Laura Kelly was a part of it, although it wasn't in the prime time. She was part of a forum of female governors, so she did have a part in it, although it wasn't during that key time.
No, the Republicans are in action next week, Michael Mahoney. Will they get much more of a speaking role? We have lots of people from our neck of the woods who are Republicans. Will they be in prime time?
I haven't seen the lineup, but my first blush is I doubt it, for the same reason that the Democrats of Kansas and Missouri were practically invisible at the convention, and that's the fact that neither Kansas nor Missouri are in play at a national level. Yeah, the Kansas Senate race is going to be interesting. Yeah, it looks like the Missouri governor's race is going to be interesting, but it does not look like either Missouri or Kansas, certainly Kansas, are in play in terms of the electoral strategies of either Donald Trump or Joe Biden.
So no room for Josh Hawley, Dave Helling?
Well, you may see Josh Hawley. He's certainly paying attention to 2024. As Mike says, we don't have the list yet, but here's what's happening, Nick, in some ways. In the old days, someone like a Barb Bollier, for example, would get a speaking role for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And it meant nothing to the convention, but it meant everything to people like Dave Helling and Mike Mahoney, who were covering the convention. And we would roll on that tape, and they'd do a live shot. Yes, Barb Bollier spoke, and she would get a little free airtime back in her home state. But local reporters aren't covering this convention because there is no convention.
Kat.
Yeah, I think we will see Josh Hawley for the RNC. And then we're also hearing that we could see the McCloskeys, which is the couple who were arrested in St. Louis. They were waving their guns at the protesters. So we've been told they will be a part of it.
Your local member of Congress was abruptly called back to Washington this week, cutting short their summer recess to tackle what has become America's latest political fault line, the U.S. Postal Service. The House expected to vote this weekend on a measure blocking the post office from making any operational changes that could make it harder to process what is expected to be a surge in mail-in ballots this fall. In a preemptive move, the Postmaster General says he's now suspending any changes to the way they handle mail until after the election. But meanwhile, in Kansas City, a top Postal Service official says there isn't an issue and that they have ample capacity to process election-related mail. So do voters here have anything to worry about, Michael?
The thing to watch when the House goes back in and makes this post office vote is Congressman Roger Marshall from Western Kansas, because he's obviously running for the Senate. He told me earlier this week that he doesn't think that the post office needs more money. And it's also interesting that Cerise Davids' mom, who works for the post office, she's been thumping the tub pretty hard on the post office thing. It's also probably, I think, an effective issue for Democrats.
Kat.
Yeah, I think voters here absolutely need to be cognizant of the fact that they need to get those mail-in ballots in early. Sean Kiefer of the KC Election Board said plan for at least a week. In the primary, we had about 280 ballots that were received too late to be counted. So people need to plan for a large influx of mail-in ballots and get those in early.
Now, this winter, will you have to wait longer for snow removal and pothole repairs? You will if you live in Kansas City, Missouri. Starting this week, new budget cuts go into effect that shave millions of dollars from city maintenance projects. The city is already warning that parks and boulevards will also be mowed less frequently. Is Kansas City facing the same issues as every other local government from Overland Park to Blue Springs? Or has the pandemic hit Kansas City harder than those other cities, Dave?
Well, Kansas City is in a bit of a unique position because it collects an earnings tax, and the earnings tax is a huge part of the city's budget, $250, $260 million every year. And not only are fewer people working, Nick, but people like me who are working from home in Kansas may be eligible for a refund of the earnings tax next year because we're not working in Kansas City, Missouri. So they're in a bit of a pickle. Plus, sales taxes are down. Fewer people are buying things. So Kansas City is in bigger trouble than other cities, but this is not unique to Kansas City either.
What do these changes do, Eric Wesson, to Mayor Quinton Lucas's claim? And I was looking at his very first speech at City Hall where he says, without focusing on basic city services, any goodwill that's being built up means absolutely nothing.
Well, that is true. And I kind of wanted to piggyback off of Dave, what Dave was saying too about the earnings tax. Baseball games, Sprint Arena's been closed. That's a lot of lost
But isn't
money.
that true of a
But
lot of
they
cities?
weren't
I see
thinking
Oak Park,
about those anyway.
Cat Reed, I see Oak Park Mall, for instance, is now planning to file for bankruptcy, less foot traffic. Tenants who can't pay the rent. Isn't this happening all over our city?
Yeah, I mean, the earnings tax is an additional thing in Kansas City, as Dave mentioned, but this is something that all cities are going to be contending with.
Here's the thing about this is, earnings tax and sales tax are taking a hit. That's a valid question. But as sure as you're looking at this TV show right now, I guarantee you, when we have a bad winter storm, people are going to be yelling like crazy about the poor snow removal service, and they won't accept hard times as an excuse.
If you complain loud enough, though, can you get your own way? Is that the lesson coming out of the airport this week, where the city has decided to reverse course on plans to give one of the largest contracts for the new KCI single terminal project to a Colorado company? Now, they've walked that back and are going to give the $80 million paving job to a local firm instead. Is this local company going to do this work cheaper and better, or was there political maneuvering behind the scenes, Cat Reed?
Well, we're told Idacare says that their bid was $75 million, but we don't have the exact prices or the minority and women-owned firm percentages for these bids. But the ESCO, the group that lost the bid, said that this was absolutely political maneuvering, a muscle by the city council to change this bid. So it has left a bad taste in their mouth. And this reminds me a lot of the earlier days of the procurement process, some of the things that we saw unfold then.
But none of this, though, is going to derail the airport opening in 2023 ahead of the NFL draft, is it, Michael?
No, it shouldn't. But, you never know what happens. The idea that there was backroom political dealing, however, is absolutely false. This was front porch political dealing. The opponents to the original bid came out and had literally at a news conference on the steps across the street from City Hall saying, we want this reversed. And they had the political pull to do it.
Are there any major changes now being proposed at the airport now that we're in the middle of the pandemic, that we have airlines pulling out? Air Canada left. We have big companies like Cerner saying even after COVID ends, we're not going to travel as much with our employees across America and the world.
There is a concern that will happen. The idea of the way we travel changing is very real. And of course, the airlines are paying for this airport. They have not yet said that there need to be major changes or reductions. They are nervous about cost overruns, though, and I think there will be much more attention paid to the cost of things going forward.
It's going to be paid for, though, by fees, though, from airline passengers, Cat Reed. If there are fewer airline passengers, that means fewer fees being collected. Will we ever be on the hook ourselves as taxpayers?
Well, I think if you're traveling, you are going to see the amount go up that you're paying, but not as taxpayers. This is being paid for by the airport, by people who are traveling there. It is going to be more money per ticket, though. Initially, they said it'd be about $10 extra. That's going to go up, although Justin Meyer of the airport says that it'll go up across the country, not just here.
Now, when you put a program like this together every week, you can't get to every story making the headlines. What was the big story we missed? The Kansas governor imposing a new moratorium on evictions. No such relief on the Missouri side, where evictions continue this week.
I don't have any feelings for these things. None.
8 months after Troy Schulte resigned as city manager, Mayor Quinton Lucas naming the finalists to replace him. 3 are African American. All of them are from outside Kansas City. Marking the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, guaranteeing women the right to vote, though women of color would wait a whole lot longer to get that same opportunity. Most of the Metro's AMC movie theaters reopen this week. The Leawood-based theater chain trying to win back customers by charging just 15 cents a ticket. Remember, you're not seeing any new films. There's no new movie releases scheduled until August 28th. And shuttered since March, the Nelson Gallery is finally reopening.
We missed you. Come see us. Welcome back.
Fewer opening days and timed tickets will greet visitors when the Nelson's doors officially swing open on September 12th. Kat Reed, did you pick one of those stories or something completely different?
I have to go with the city manager search, the finalists being named. And people forget, especially with Troy Schulte no longer in the role, just how powerful the city manager is in Kansas City. We have a council manager form of government, and this is one of the most important people in City Hall. They will play a huge role in the shape of the city moving forward.
Eric Wesson.
I agree. All of them from outside of Kansas City. What's the real underlying message with that?
Michael Mahoney.
I'm there on the city manager as well. Look for the style of the city manager to be altered a little bit in here because Troy Schulte was so dominating. I don't think Quinton Lucas prefers that. This is going to be something that happens through the fall with an eye towards getting a new city manager in place right after the holidays.
Dave Helling.
Let's go back to the airport for a minute, Nick. Edgemore gave a report to the council this week. 90% of the people working at the airport today do not live in Kansas City, Missouri. That could be an issue going forward.
And on that, we will say our week has been reviewed. Thanks, Kat Reed at 41 Action News. And we're grateful to the calls Eric Wesson from KMBC 9 News, Michael Mahoney and Dave Helling of your Kansas City Star. By the way, after the show, we're all masking up. And I'm going to be playing Pac-Man on that machine right behind Eric Wesson's shoulder there. Looking forward to that. I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at KCPT, keep calm and carry on.